Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel called Zuzanareacts, where I learn all things Bharat with your help, and I just share my Slovak Central European point of view. And today we're going to have a very interesting video. We're going to look into a German expat who has chosen for her life India over Europe. So is India really better for her life than Europe? Let's find out.
Please like this video and click on the subscribe button and turn on the notification. Thank you so much for your support.
Meet Hella, a German actress and scriptwriter who moved to Mumbai in 2021, though she has been coming to India since 2008. Hella shared with me why she loves India so much, how it feels for a Western actress to perform in Hindi, and why it's a stressful experience to be a single woman in India. I'm Max, your best Russian friend. Let's go.
What do you like about living in India?
I actually like that everything's just chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
for you as German, it's not like too much. Sorry for generalizing.
No, I know. No, I do get that. Like, I actually think in the beginning when you come to India for the first time, you're totally overwhelmed by this chaos. And you're like, how is this even possible? Like, how can people function? And it takes a while to realize that in Germany, everything is very direct. You know, in Germany, everything has a rule, and then, you know, it's just direct, and this is how you do it. And in India, everything goes in circles. So if something doesn't work, obviously first I'm like, oh God, okay, something doesn't work, fine. Let's see what happens. And then you just kind of go with the flow. You're like, okay, fine, I need this done. It's not working like this, which would be the direct way. Let's just see. And then it just goes around in circles, and at some point you have it. It just takes more time maybe, but I also think there's always a solution for everything. And it also makes it just more flexible. Like the Indian society is very flexible. Like if this doesn't work, then it's going to work like this. And it's not fixed. Which also gives you more freedom, I find. Like it's just, and then again, I like that it's a very diverse culture, you know, because India is huge. There's so many different ways of life. Like it's so from one extreme to the next. I also really like that there's so many religions living together, and they all live together peacefully and respect that, oh yeah, this person believes in this and that person believes in that, and they don't really care. And then it goes even further, you know, when you go down, you have people who live in housing communities and they only eat specific things. And then friends in another house, they eat this. Yeah. So there's also a lot of like differences in food. But because everybody knows someone else is going to do something different, it's totally okay. So there is not that idea of, oh, everybody needs to do the same, which I actually really like. And I also like that Indians in general are very, very like genuinely nice people. Like they're always in a good mood. They like to celebrate. They're very open. It's easy to speak to them. I also think Mumbai is a very safe city. Like I really enjoy that. Like obviously you have to be a bit careful at night, and you have to know where you're going, and obviously you have to make sure people are not following you. But in general, I think it's a lot safer than Europe, I would say.
Do you remember your first impressions of the country?
So what I did is I spoke to a lot of friends first time I came in 2008. And I spoke to like friends in Germany. I was living in Munich at that time, and I was like, I want to go to India. And then obviously, you know, you meet people who've been to India. Yeah. And lots of people will say they love it or they hate it. I think India is like you hate it or you love it. There's nothing in between. Yeah. So obviously then some people said, no, it was awful, and people are so like in your face, and they just talk to you all the time, and they just don't leave you in peace. And others were saying, no, it's totally amazing. So I decided I'm going to go on my own. So then I went to Nepal first. So I went 2 weeks to Nepal, which is really, really nice. I really enjoyed it. And then from Nepal, I flew to Delhi and spent a week in Delhi in 2008 and just did a lot of like the sites. And I just really liked it. Like it was just, I don't know, it was just lots of like Delhi. I don't know, you haven't been, but it's like it has a lot of history. It's very old. So if you go to the old part of town, like Chandni Chowk, you have like lots of bazaar and market, and then you have a big mosque, and it's just lots of really intense different culture. So I was really intrigued by India being very, very different. Like I think it's just one of these countries where you come, you visit, and you just realize how different it is. Like so many different things, and the signs all look different, and you're just like, oh my God. So I was kind of overwhelmed a bit, yeah.
And you traveled on your own?
Yes, I traveled on my own.
Because like Delhi has this reputation of being not super safe for women.
Right, but that was also, I mean, that rape case happened later. So that was before, in 2008. And at that point, I didn't actually know that. Like, I didn't know that, you know, now people say, oh, you couldn't go to Delhi. I now wouldn't really go to Delhi, because I think it got worse. Like in 2008, I did have not very nice experiences in Delhi. Like I would say Delhi is a tough place as a woman on your own, because you have people following you. So groups of guys. They just follow you around, and then they speak to saying, hi, where are you from? And you're like, yeah, I'm from blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, oh, welcome to India. And do you want to have coffee? And then you say, no, thanks. And they're like, oh, come on, let's have a coffee. And you're like, no, I'm busy. I'm going to go somewhere. Where are you going? We'll come with you. And you're like, no, thank you. And it's very difficult to just get rid of them. And then they leave. And then 15 minutes later, they're there again. Oh, hi, nice to see you again. So you constantly have these guys just following you around. And yeah, I don't know. It's very exhausting in Delhi. Like I actually didn't have it that much because I'm dark haired. I don't have blonde hair, blue eyes. So I don't stick out that much. So that's actually a positive, because I do, over the years now, I've spoken to blonde haired women, and sometimes the the stories they tell me, I'm like, oh my God, how can they even cope with that? So yeah, and then I did a lot of, a week of Delhi, then I did a bit of traveling around, I went to Jaipur, and then I decided to extend my trip and just go to Mumbai because I was like, I have to go to Mumbai. It's like Bollywood. It's like, because at that time I was working in film, but not as an actress. So I was like, let's just go to Mumbai. And I'm going to give myself 2 weeks and I want to be an extra in Bollywood. Because at that time it was very common for coordinators to look for foreigners in Colaba.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
For acting?
No, it was just for background. So a lot of times when they shoot a Bollywood film, the film might actually take place in the US or in UK or in Europe. But then they come here and they shoot all of the interior scenes in studios. But then if they say, okay, now the main characters are in London and they're going to a restaurant, you need foreigners in the restaurant because in London you have a lot of...
For entourage, for black people.
Right, you can't say, okay, now they're in a restaurant and everybody's Indian because they're supposedly to be in London. Yeah, so I was like, okay, sure. So in the Lonely Planet at that time, they were saying, if you want to be, they spoke about it as well. They said, if you want to be an extra in Bollywood, you can, go to Colaba and then they will ask you. So, and they mentioned a couple of guest houses where also the people working there have contacts to the coordinators.
Yeah.
So I chose one of these guest houses, like a hostel. And then I arrived by train. And then I took this taxi, which was totally, super expensive because I didn't know. So he just didn't switch on the meter, nothing. So I paid way too much. And then I check into that guest house in Colaba. And in that moment, the guy says, oh, do you want to be an extra in Bollywood tomorrow? And I'm like, sure. So it was really fun. So I did it like 5 or 6 times in these 2 weeks. In Indian society, women are secondary. I mean, that's just a fact. It's always like that. And I also feel that, like, you constantly have this. Yeah. I think the biggest problem I have in India, living in India, is that I'm secondary. Like, women in general are secondary to men in this society.
Oh, I would so love this audience to tell me about this because you praised like how you worship women, how they're the most important thing, how you had the women warriors. And she's saying something quite contrary that I've been hearing from Indian women. So I would love to know. I know this will come as a backlash, but I think that, man, you shouldn't be threatened. You should just own things. I'm not saying all men are the same either, but you should just own it and be honest because, that's just now an outsider view.
And obviously it depends where you are. There's also differences of like, who do I speak to? But in general, I think there's a lot of like underlying little incidents where I just sense that they're doing it because I'm a woman. And that sometimes drives me crazy. Like, I just don't like that. Like, I find that really annoying.
Can you recall any example?
I mean, very simple example would be like on the train or even like when you're on the train platform, train station, lots of people, there's always the touching thing. So
like people squeeze you in this one?
No, so like let's say you go in a train station, local train station, you go to the platform and there's lots and lots of people. Yeah. Men would just walk past you and they would touch you. Like they just basically the hand would just touch your thigh.
Like on purpose?
Yeah. They do that on purpose. And it's kind of like this thing, oh, she's a white woman, I'm just going to touch her. And I spoke to my Indian friends about it, like female friends, and they also say it happens to them. And I also try to avoid it. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, okay, doesn't happen that often, but it happens. And it's a little bit like, I think it's a game, they just want this, they're just going to touch her. And you can't even do anything because even if you address them, they would say, why? It was really crowded. I didn't, it's just accident. It's like in this in between, but they do it on purpose. So that's one thing. Then I also have, like when I did research for my book, a lot of times, I took buses a lot. I was waiting at bus stops a lot. I also have this specific group of people, let's say a little bit older, educated, speak English, then try to have a conversation with me. So a man, I'm standing at the bus stop, he's standing at the bus stop, and then he would speak to me, say, oh, where do you want to go? And do you need help? And I'm like, no, I'm fine, I know where I'm going. But then they force a conversation on you, and they want you to speak to them because they say, I'm a man, you have to speak to me. So as soon as you don't do it, they get kind of angry or they get like they don't like it because they're like, no, I want to speak to you now, you have to speak to me. And it's not so much what they say, it's more the, the energy you get. It's like it's like this underlying emotion kind of, the atmosphere. And I had that a lot. And then obviously you have people hitting on you, like, all the time. You have people following you.
Even in Mumbai.
Yeah. But in Mumbai, it's not as much. Like I have it a little bit, like in Colaba, where the tourists are, you have people kind of showing up and saying, oh, where are you going? What are you doing? I can help you. Do you want to go for coffee? But compared to the north of India, it's not a lot. Like in the north, it's quite a lot. In Rajasthan, I would say it's super annoying.
I think it's also like a bright side. People are super friendly and they're super talkative. So it's kind of easy to, let's say, make friends. And then maybe I have different experience.
But I think it's like, I normally think that, and I speak to my foreign friends, like male friends about it. I think if you are a man, as a foreigner, you come here, your experience of India is going to be very different to mine. Because society is also very separate. So Indian women, basically the rule is a man who doesn't know a woman is not supposed to speak to her. So that's what I also do. When I walk and I have a guy speaking to me, I know that he's not supposed to do this. So I'm very rude. And I don't speak to them, because obviously I can say, should I speak to them? Should I not speak to them? But why do they speak to me? I do understand, for example, sometimes, I go to sites, you go to the Colaba, the Gateway of India, and then you meet a Indian family from a small town or a bigger town somewhere in India, and they never see a white person there, because there's lots of places in India where white people don't go. And then they look at me and they're like, oh my God, a white person. We've never seen a white person. And then they say, can we take a picture? So it's a big family, it's the parents, it's grandmother and grandfather and kids. And obviously I'm going to take a picture and I have a chat with them. But if I have like a group of like 22-year-old guys who want a picture and all of them want like the picture separately, I'm like, no, because you're just going to show it around and say, my girlfriend.
So I've heard that this is true across Asia, not just India. I just find it is the oddest thing on the planet.
And they do that.
Yeah? You wrote this very nice guide about Mumbai. What was the biggest for you, like the biggest, I don't know, what you found something interesting during writing the guide? Something that when you start researching is like, oh, that's kind of not under radar, something that people don't really know about the place.
Yeah, I think, I started just it was just like an idea, like it was 2011. I was living in Mumbai for 6 months just for fun, to give it a try. And then I started exploring the city. Like I just systematically went to different parts of town and just walked around. And back then I did it with a map. So they had this amazing book. It was like this big, like this thick, and it was like a map book. So I had this and I just explored. And then after 3 months, I decided, let's take the bus. And I think that opened a lot of, because the train always goes the same way. That it's always the same. But then when you take a bus, you actually end up going to places you've never been before. So that took me a while. It was lots of trial and error to kind of find out which bus do I take and how do I take it. And I also discovered that everything in Mumbai has 2 names. So, you have the Indian name, which you need to know if you travel by bus. And then you obviously have the English name. Okay. So that's when I also kind of started learning all of the Indian names and really worked on getting to know the geography of the city. I do think Mumbai is ideal for public transport. It's because of the train lines. It's the fastest way. And then obviously once you understand how to take a bus, it's also very cheap and it takes you to areas where you normally wouldn't go. And I think nowadays, if you just take a rickshaw, first of all, rickshaw drivers in general don't know where you want to go. So you always have a discussion. You need to find it. Now it's easy because people use the phone. But when I did this in 2014, 2012, you don't have a phone. So obviously you need to speak to him, then you ask people. So it was a bit annoying. So I actually realized it's so much easier if I just go on my own, and then I just take, the bus. I think one thing that I also did, which I didn't plan on doing, is I wrote about food. So I'm not a big foodie. But then I had a good friend who was running very nice hostel. He was the co-founder of the Honokai hostel in Bandra, which doesn't exist anymore. But before lockdown, it was one of the best hostels. And I stayed there quite a lot. And then he was actually saying, Hela, if you write a guidebook, you have to write about food. Because it's all about food.
Yeah.
And then he made me basically write about food, which was great because I learned something new.
What's your favorite Indian food?
I like Italy, South Indian food a lot. But when it comes to the Mumbai charts, so the snacks, I really like bel puri, misal pav, and maybe a vada pav. Yeah, let's say vada pav.
Do you miss winter here?
Yes, I do. I do have to say, I miss stuff. I miss food. I also miss how we use public space in Europe. So for example, in Munich, we have the English garden. So I can go to the English garden and I meet my friends and we have a picnic, just sit, or you play sport, or in the English garden, you can't, but there's areas like we have a river. So along the river, you can have a barbecue. So you just sit. And here in Mumbai, you just don't do that. So it's even if you go to the beach, it's just not the same. I like to ride a bicycle at home. Here, again, it's a difficult thing. I like to walk here in Mumbai. Walking is, I do it a lot, but still it's exhausting because the sidewalks are constantly occupied. So you walk in the road and there's a huge amount of traffic and it's noisy. And so, yeah, I do miss winter. Like last year for Christmas, I went back home. So my sister lives in Switzerland. So I always go to Switzerland. And I was hoping for snow because I wanted to do a snowboard and I just wanted winter and I just want cold. We didn't have any snow until I left. It came when I left. So this year, I'm going to go and spend more time there in January so I can do some snowboarding.
When you're not in Mumbai, not in India, what do you start? You said you miss Mumbai. What do you miss about Mumbai when you're not here?
A lot of people ask me that. Like when they said, why do you write a guidebook about Mumbai? Why do you like it so much? I mean, why? It doesn't sound like it's nice. It's huge. It's dirty. It's 25 million people. It's crazy. Why? And it's a very difficult thing to explain, I think. I think it's more the energy of the city. Like, I think in the beginning, I was really intrigued by the diversity of it. Like, when you look at Mumbai, it's very unique in the sense that how it developed. It's not like Delhi. Delhi, you have 10, 12 sites. People go to a hotel and then they just go to like Chandni Chowk and the Jama Masjid, and then they go to Qata Minar and the Bikana House, and then they go to Humayun's tomb. They just go to these sites and they don't really explore a neighborhood. And because Mumbai doesn't have these many sites, I mean, where do you go? You go to Gateway of India, you go to Chhatrapati Shivaji Terminus to look at the nice outside, you go to Marine Lines, then maybe you go to Malabar Hill, Banganga Tank, but then you're already thinking, where do I go? So I think Mumbai, the speciality or the uniqueness is that each part of town is so different. So I think you take a lot of walks, you go to different areas and you suddenly realize how different it is. And I like that. I think that's what I found really intriguing in the beginning, that there is a very unique history. And then obviously I read a lot about the history. I do think, you live here now in Andheri, but then you go, I don't know, have you been to the eastern parts of Mumbai? Like, have you been to Baikula? Have you been to Bhuleshwar, Kalbadevi? It's totally different. And I think that's the beauty of Mumbai, when you take walks and you actually see how different the life of people in the city is. And then obviously I miss the local train. I like to take the train. I think it's like the most amazing thing ever to take the local train. It's also the fastest way to, if you go in town, it's like amazing. So I think it's because Mumbai has a fascinating history, it has fascinating architecture, and then it has a very diverse population. And they're all very nice. So it's not, you feel like, it's, you're constantly, people speak to you all the time.
And here you speak in Hindi when you play? You do Hindi?
So I can speak Hindi quite okay now. It's still not fluent because it's a difficult language and it takes time. But I actually now did the first performance in Hindi and English. So it was a mixture of Hindi and English.
Interesting.
And that went really well. And it was also really tough because they only cast me a day before. And then I had this endless amount of text and half of it was Hindi. So I prepared it at night and for the next day. And it went well, but I still have that feeling if I perform in Hindi, I need more time to prepare. Like I need a couple of days to learn it. So it's very organic. Like in English, I can learn it the same day, depending on how much it is. But in general, if it's not a lot, I just learn it, on set, basically. That's also what they do here. They don't give you the text beforehand. So normally you show up and then you get your lines on the day, which I also don't like very much. I mean, I don't like it.
How to say welcome to India in Hindi?
Oh, actually, they always say that in English. Welcome to India.
Okay. And Hindi? Can you
I mean, you would say, I think, Aapka Swagat hai. I think that actually you would say, but I'm not sure.
Or like come to India, or like explore India, something like that.
You can say India, Ajao would be informal. Ajao is come.
So I believe, just as add to the video, I found it very, I don't know what you guys thought, but I found it very authentic. I could relate in a number of things just from my little trip to India. I think it's just because I visited North and she also been to Jaipur just like I did. I don't know, like she's choosing India, but I don't feel like personally she has spoken that. She highlighted, I think, why Europe is actually better than India than the other way around. That was my personal take on it. But obviously India is so huge, right? So for example, I only did 0.00% of India. So it's obviously like hard to judge. You can only speak from your experiences. But I was really surprised, and in a way where it related to my experience is the whole picture taking and touching thing, which I really did not appreciate. So that is something I understand exactly, like we were told that, there are people that live in outside parts of India and they haven't seen a white person, but then you feel like you're in a zoo, like you're this kept animal that everyone wants to touch. Like imagine that just the situation to be the other way around, that you come amongst white people and you're just the only brown person there and everyone just wants to touch you. You wouldn't like it either. So that one was very, 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 very interesting. What she was talking about, that she actually likes the chaos. And the thing is, like, for me, the chaos, I felt very indifferent to it. I don't know how to explain it. Like I think maybe the closest word to it is like accepted it for what it is, and I felt like, oh, now I finally understand. I think maybe I don't. Maybe I just think I think I do. The Sadhguru about India is chaotic, but I didn't feel like it was. I mean, the traffic is really, really hectic. I wish there were some rules, actually, like we have over here. But it worked at the end of the day. One thing I think that she has mentioned was that, with that you lose a lot of time. But I think this is where our culture is vastly different, and this is where you would get clash at work, or like trying to understand a different culture, is the idea of the time. So we here, like the number one prized possession that someone has is time. And people guard their time. So when people from other cultures that have a different concept of time waste our time, we really get angry and frustrated. That's just the bottom line. Like that is just what it is. I think it's just very different. I don't know where you can find an intersection there, but between like the merge between the cultures. But I find it, like, I personally find it so highly disrespectful. It's beyond, because there are so many things to do. And I was thinking if it is because in India, and it's just a thought, because there's just so many people, and even though when I was there, I checked the population, unemployment rate is very low. It was in June 3.2%. It's very low, but it still felt like a lot of people had nothing to do. So when you have nothing to do, you will just naturally waste other people's time that have a lot to do, right? I wonder if this is what it is. Obviously, I'm sure it varies from place to place, from like, I don't know, person to person. But that was my thought process. That's just basically, like the people in my life that have like, they would just like call me and talk to me for a long time. It's just because they're bored. But I'm like, dude, I'm not bored. I have work, I have YouTube, I have so many other things on my plate that like TikTok, like I have to be really scheduled for me to run my life, for it to be effective, for me to be able to accomplish things. But when people have no goals, no aspirations, they have no work, they just like sit around, then to them, time is not valuable. So I think that is like a big clash, cultural clash. I wonder what you guys think about that one. But then she said the positive side to it, there is a lot of flexibility. But I think here, what we're trying to do, you try to plan, preempt, find the best possible way. Like I think the religion, quote unquote, here is really to be efficient. Like you really want to be efficient, and especially actually coming from her being a German is a very different culture too. I think that they are sometimes like robots. They don't show emotions. They're just like, when I work with Germans, they're like, it has to be A, B, C, D. And you logically see that you can go from A to D without any problems. And then I ask, can we just like do A to D? And no, they go like, you need to do A, B, C, D. I'm like, but really these steps are not really that necessary. We can do it this way. And they are like, no, you need A, B, C, D. So I think, and for me, that's just like mind blowing, because I'm like, no, you have to take the most efficient way. The fastest, the most efficient way to get something down on quality. And if you have unnecessary steps, I don't see it. But that's kind of German culture. And lo and behold, they are the biggest economy in whole Europe. So there has to account for something. Although we can speculate at how they actually gotten to that point. But nonetheless, they are very precise and like to do that. So I think that for a German person coming to an India, it might be like the chaos might be very, very big thing. I think for Slovaks it's different. So you can see like, it's just so hard to generalize, which I feel like a lot of people on the channel do, like Westerners. There's no such thing. Every nation is just so very different. Just like you have different states in India, so do we. And every country in Europe has its own mentality, and we perceive and do things totally different. I have absolutely nothing in common with the French or English people. Nada. With Spanish, I know nothing about Spanish, Portuguese, Italians. I know nothing. Long behold, I know nothing about Croatians, Serbians, like the southern parts of Europe. We just don't care. And then we just like, if you work with people, you get to learn about them. But Interesting. I felt like indeed it was more of a promotion why to live in Europe than to live in India. I wonder what you guys thought. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching this video with me. If you did enjoy, please give a thumbs up, share a like, and subscribe to this channel. And I will see you in the next one. Until then, please do take care. I'm sending lots of love. Bye-bye.